I was at your place, and one night you had guests for dinner, and I had been staying there, and I came in, and you said to the guests, "David's moving into an apartment next week, aren't you, David?"
I did.
Yeah. And I got the message, and I started trying to find it at that apartment you were talking about.
Well, I tell you, that was part of a grand conspiracy.
Yeah, you've got to tell the story.
Oh, you know about it?
I only have heard bits and pieces of rumors.
Okay, well, Fisk was now up at the Philadelphia Academy.
Right.
Telling you to come on up, right? And you had it sort of made, in a way, in Alexandria. I mean, you had a gallery. You were part of a stable in the gallery. We decided that Lynch has got it too easy here, and he's losing his life if he stays here. There's really nothing here. So my brother David and Michael Oka and I decided that we were going to make life very miserable for you. So miserable that you were going to maybe go up to Philadelphia. And I remember I wouldn't give you the time of day. I could see the look in your face. You didn't understand this, you know? What the hell's wrong with these guys? And then one day you came in and you had your fists clenched. And you had this look on your face and you said, "Bushnell?" You didn't even say hello. You said, "Bushnell, I'm going to get the hell out of here." And I thought, hallelujah. Where were you going? What are you going to do? You said, "I'm going up to Philadelphia with Jack." And I said, "Well, you need any help?" "No, I don't need any help." "I get a bus. I'll take a bus up." And I said, "Okay, well, good luck. You know, can I drive you to the station?" "No, I'll get there myself." Well, right after you left, I got on the phone. I called the academy. I talked to the director of the academy. I don't remember his name.
I don't either, but you called him up? Really?
Called him up and I said, "There's a young man on his way up there in a bus." And I said, "He's got more talent in his little finger than 90% of all the artists that I know. And he needs to be there. And do you have room for him?"
Bless your heart, Bushnell.
And he said, "We'll be looking for him." Oh, I felt good.
Bushnell, you're the greatest guy.
Well, we all did it.
Yeah.
You know?
And we lived in this little room, and it was awful. So we started looking for a bigger place, and we found this house over by the morgue at 13th and Wood in Philadelphia. It was a great deal. It was like $40 a month for a 3-story house. And on New Year's Eve of that year, it must have been 65 or 66, we got all of our possessions, there weren't many, and put them into a grocery cart. And put my dog on top of the grocery cart and started wheeling them across town to 13th and Wood. And it was New Year's Eve, and everybody was out partying and stuff. And I remember this drunk couple came up to us in a circle, and they saw us being evicted on New Year's Eve. But we explained to them we weren't evicted; we were moving to a much nicer place. And they wanted to give us money. And we tried to. I think we succeeded, but we told them we were rich, and we sort of felt we were rich. And we were living exactly the way we wanted to live, and we were going to this much nicer place. It didn't have hot water or anything like that, but it had a lot of space. And David, you know, had his own room, I had my own room, and then he had a floor for a studio, and I had a floor for a studio, so it was luxurious. And one of the benefits for David, I mean, there was 2 benefits. One was that we were right next to Pop's Diner, and Pop's Diner closed at 6 o'clock every night. So if he was able to wake up by 5 p.m., he could get over there and get his breakfast, which was about 5 cups of coffee before they closed. And that was kind of his schedule. I mean, he'd wake up about 5 in the afternoon and then paint and stay up all night. The other great advantage was that at Pop's Diner, he met some of the people that worked at the morgue. And one of the guys there started telling David about some of the bodies and cases that would, you know, interesting cases would come in, and then invited David over. And I could always tell David was going to the morgue because he dressed up and would put on like 2 or 3 ties and be real excited. And he'd go over and this gentleman, I can't remember his name, was was excited because here was some young kid sort of interested in his work. And whenever there's some kind of gruesome body found in the city of Philadelphia, which happened pretty often, David would be dressed up, and he would even wake up early on those days to be able to get over there before they closed. And it was pretty horrific. I never went over there. My father was an undertaker, so I'd seen enough of funeral parlors and stuff when I was a kid. But I remember him talking about the parts room, where sometimes they wouldn't find the whole body, but they just find like an arm or leg or ear or something. And I think some of this probably had a pronounced effect on some of his later filmmaking. I don't know exactly how David's mind works, but sometimes I see little hints of elements that come back in Lynch's films, and that may be one of them.
Oh yeah, we were walking home from the academy one night. Actually, he was on his bicycle, which he used to ride everywhere. And there was a little bit of snow on the ground, and there was this little bird sitting right in the middle of the sidewalk. And it was still alive then. We picked it up and took it home, and we tried to nurse it back to health, but it really, I think, had died by the time we got home. And I swear David didn't kill it. It just died. Anyway, so he decided that he wanted to have the skeleton of this bird. And so we stayed up all night, and he boiled the bird and boiled it in bleach. He boiled it in suds, and then he went at it and he started dismembering this thing. I mean, he took all the feathers and everything else off of it, and I mean, it was a very serious project. We were really working very hard, and we were really tired. And then and he pretty much had it. Like, there was this little delicate skeleton. And the next day, we were sitting at the kitchen table with Jack, and Jack had, a dog named Five and a cat named Zero. And we were talking, and all of a sudden we realized that Zero had the rib cage and the rest of it in his mouth. And David just went berserk. Jack thought it was hilarious, of course, which made David even madder. But David just flew into a rage, and then he stayed up all night taking the flesh off this poor bird, and the cat ate the rib cage. So,
what did you ever see in this man?
The log lady came into being right upstairs here too, and I don't know exactly. For a while I stayed at Jack and Catherine's house, and I always pictured their fireplace as the place where Catherine would be a lady whose husband had died in a forest fire, and the fireplace would be completely boarded up, and on the top there'd be his pipes and maybe his sock hat and his ashes. And Catherine would have a small child, and I don't know if this child was like completely, normal or, but being a good mother would take the child to a different place. The whole thing was, I'll test my log with every branch of knowledge. And so there would be a phone call made at the beginning of the show, and then Catherine would take the log, and Catherine would be a person afraid to drive, so they'd have to take a cab. And they'd stop off for a treat at a diner, and sometimes never get out of the diner. And sometimes they'd end up going to a specialist, like the one trip was to a dentist, where they put the log in the chair and put the little bib around the log. And the dentist would, through the interaction with the log, you'd learn a lot about dentistry. See that sound? That's the sound that we know someone's coming in. And it happens to be a park ranger. So anyway, and so Catherine was going to be that lady. And so when we were shooting the pilot on Twin Peaks, it struck me, and I called Catherine, and Catherine was up there in a shot, and we got the log, and all she really was going to do is flip the light switch and prompt this line from Agent, Dale Cooper. and or Sheriff Harry S. Truman, and that was going to be the end of it. But something caught on, you know, with the appearance of Catherine with that log, and it went from there.
I grew up in hotels, so it was interesting when David asked me to write the hotel room plays, because it was something that I knew quite a lot about. I was born in a hotel, the Seneca Hotel in Chicago, which contained the lobby of the men with no last names, as an old Chicago con man, Kingfish Stevens, used to say. My dad was a racketeer. He was involved with liquor and gambling. And he didn't live a very conventional life. It was a 24-hour kind of existence. I wrote a story about this once. I was going up in an elevator in a hotel. I believe it was the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and I was a little kid. And I was with an associate of my dad's, and I asked him, I said, does my father work for a living? And he says, sure, he works. Everybody has to work. And I says, what does he do? And he said, he talks. He says, your dad's a great talker. So I think that that was the best education that an incipient writer could possibly have. But David's way of putting it on the screen is never really what one might expect. It looks different. And then, in my case, I settle back and say, he's right. This is the way it's supposed to look. This is the way it's supposed to sound. It's a miracle. You know, I'm sure that we have our detractors out there, and that's only fair. You know, if we can get half of the people who care about literature, about film, and all that to pay attention, that's remarkable in itself.
I knew this guy would be a wonderful director. He was neat, he was clean, he was, you know, insanely focused. And nothing else mattered. It's like I always hire an editor to do my pictures. I try to get a guy who's not married, because I say to him, well, between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., you know, straighten it out. You know, straighten out that scene where the girl wants to kill herself and she doesn't. You know, just straighten it out. You know, and if they're not married, they stay there. And they do it, you know. So if they're married, they say, no, I can't, my wife, you know. So anyway, at the time, I knew that married or not, Lynch was married to his art. And that he would, because I was thinking about the money too. I said, you know, we have to make this for, you know, and I said, what did the race ahead cost? And he said about 30 cents of it. I don't know, you know. I don't know, it cost something like $6,000. I mean, it was that's bill collectors, you know, they answer that outside. You'll get your money. You'll get your money. I got him a present when he first went to shoot The Elephant Man. I knew it would be cold there, so I bought him a blue coat with a belt in the back, an old-fashioned blue overcoat, you know? And I went there and I saw him. He wore it every day. On the sets, inside when it was warm. He never took that coat off. He'd wear that coat. He'd wear it in the car. He'd wear it in the restaurant. He always had that big blue coat.